Prognard. I'm your host, Jacob Williams, finishing out my strategy guide series on Cuba Libre, wrapping it up with a strategy video on 26 July, the Castro's insurgency party. So, just another quick reminder, this is a strategy video, not an unboxing, playthrough, session report, or anything like that. And as always, we will be looking at my strategy talking points for this video and discussing 26 July. Now, I've done something a little bit different than I have in my previous videos. I've set up this board this setup right here is the last turn in the last 4-player play-by-email game that I played about a year ago, I think. So, and it'll become apparent why I chose this setup instead of the standard opening setup as I go through the video. But let's start out like I always do, talking about the victory condition for 26 July. 26 July must get bases plus opposition at or above 16 or higher to win on a victory phase during a propaganda round. And I think technically they have to be at 15 or higher for final scoring, but whatever. Check the rules if you're unclear on what I mean when I talk about victory condition. Okay, so let's just dive straight into path to victory. 26 July is a little difficult to play because you have to do kind of like a hit and run tactics. So this contrasts a little bit from Directorio, which was a more typical dudes on the map, traditional forces kind of overwhelm the enemy strategy that tends to be a little more intuitive. And I think that accounts for the high rate of Directorio wins that I see, is that especially with newer players, it's just a more straightforward strategy. And it's just easier to win that way. You see similar things with the Belge and Falling Sky. But, so, how do you play 26 July then? Well, what you have to do is you have to spread out across the island, okay? Because you're playing a very opportunistic game. You're waiting for the right time to do everything, okay? And you're trying to leverage your strengths that seem minor, but if you leverage them at the right time, you can have a successful game, okay? And we'll cover a little bit more of those in faction weaknesses, or faction strengths and weaknesses. So what I think is a good 26 July strategy is to spread yourself out across the board and keep your eyes out for opportunities. So let's kind of analyze. This was a friend of mine. Well, actually, I mean, everyone playing in this game was a friend of mine. It was kind of a play by email with local people. But my friend Brad, who was playing the 26 July, and I was playing government badly, I might add. So this was kind of the ones where, learn from my mistakes kind of deals. But what my friend Brad did is he has spread out his forces all across the island, okay? Now, why is it important to spread out your forces? Well, you never know when an opportunity is going to present itself, so you need guerrillas everywhere to capitalize on any opportunities you get. And you need guerrillas spread out, and you need them free to get into ECs, like my friend did. So what are some of the opportunities that you're looking for? Well, I guess I don't have this completely set up, but I'll make something kind of representative. Oh, actually, here was the exact card. So these were the two cards that were available on the last turn. So government and Directorio had already gone, and 26 July was first available on this card. And so he's got himself spread out. So he is ready to capitalize on anything he might need. So if he needs to march, He has plenty of guerrillas out there to march. If he needs to do a terror op, he's got his 2 underground guerrillas there. If he needs to do a kidnapping, he's got 2 kidnapping targets right there. He just has a lot of options because he's spread himself out. He's, I think I've already said this, but he's in ECs. Unfortunately, these are activated guerrillas. And I can't remember. It looks like he probably did a kidnapping right there. I'd have to check the logs. And I'm pretty sure he probably did a kidnapping there or something. Or maybe a sweep got in there. Or a garrison. So by spreading yourself out, you're going to get a lot of options. Now, keep in mind, while you're spreading out, and I'll talk more about this in the propaganda round talking point, but even though you're not really playing a control game the way that Directorio is, you still need to be aware of your agitation in the support phase, and you do need to kind of get control of some provinces. Okay, controlling a province isn't an ends of itself for you the way it is for Directorio. It's a means to an end. You have to have 26 July control in order to agitate, and agitation is ultimately what you want to do. All right. So what ended up happening was on this last turn, because Directorio and I were dumb and our syndicate partner didn't point it out to us, and I don't know if you can see how close 26 July is to a victory. You can see they're at 15 points, and you know they're in some sort of monsoon season. They don't really have a term for when the prop card is next, and I can't remember if in this game this was the 3rd or the 4th prop card. I think it was the 4th prop card. But anyway, because my friend kept all of his, he kept spread out and kept his options open, okay, you would think he isn't much of a threat because he only has 1 resource. But what ended up happening was, because he timed everything correctly and he set up his path to victory, he has 2 guerrillas in a place where he can terrorize them up to active opposition. And then that's what he ended up doing. You know, he chose op plus special activity. And then keeping in mind he only has 1 resource, but he has an underground guerrilla selected for a terror op with an open casino. So he was able to do a kidnapping roll. And serendipitously, I rolled a 5, and that is what he actually rolled. So he was able to get 5 resources from the syndicate. And the syndicate was actually really close to winning. They had 7 open casinos and 32 resources. I don't think they had many cash markers. I think I had stolen that cash marker. Or maybe he put it down for Sinatra. I can't remember. But anyway, he stole 5 resources. And then he was able to terrorize here. Trying to do a dramatic recreation here. He was able to get the 2nd terror marker down, flip that over to get that last point of opposition he needed, closed a casino for the kidnapping, and then he was able to do the same thing here. And incidentally, when he did that, no, I guess no control changed. And then he was able to get 17 opposition. All right. Oh, let me go ahead and flip that over for historical accuracy, or at least historical accuracy to our log. All right. So that's how the game ended up going down. And that's what I really want to drive home here. It's all about time and opportunity. Or to quote one of my favorite authors, Alexander Dumas, all of human wisdom is summed up in these 2 words, wait and hope. And that's what you have to do is 26 July. Rally your guerrillas where you can, where you see opportunities anywhere that's not in opposition. Get your guerrillas there. If you are in spaces that are neutral, terrorize them to or agitate them to get them into opposition. Uh, Especially do that where the government is. And I'll maybe hit this again in faction strengths or maybe a little bit of foreshadowing, but you have a 4-to-1 advantage over the government in terms of affecting the support and opposition of a province because it only costs you 1 resource to agitate and 4 resources for the government to uh, civic action. You're going to have that advantage too. Once you get a place into opposition, it's just going to be that much more difficult for government to affect it and get it into support. What you really have to be careful of in terms of people messing with you is these guys, the Directorio. And if you'll recall from that strategy video, they can just instantly nuke, or maybe Montanzas is a better example. If they subvert, they can just instantly nuke all of your opposition there that you work so hard for. And that's free for them. So mathematically, that's some sort of infinite advantage they have in resources over you. I kind of put 26 July as the last video because I think it's the faction I have the least experience with. Maybe I don't have the best of strategy tips. They don't have anything obvious like the Holy Trinity or Las Villas and Oriente or the way that government and government and Directorio do. So I don't know that I can give too much strategy beyond spread out, look for your opportunities, and really capitalize them when they present themselves. And I definitely think, I talked about this in the government video where I said that the player who wins is usually the player who gets to take the most full turns. And I think that's really true with 26 July, which in a way kind of sucks because they have some really fantastic events and capabilities that are going to be hard to pass up. So I don't know that I have too much else to say on Path to Victory, except for maybe let me talk about the kidnapping special activity because I feel that that's one of the most powerful special activities in the game. In some ways, it's hard to pull off, especially against the government, because you have to be in an EC or you have to be in a city where guerrillas outnumber police. And the only exception to that is if you get Guantanamo Bay into play. And I'll cover that more in capabilities. But if you can get into those places, that's really good since government is going to be one of your biggest threats. Being able to take away their resources, to kick them in the teeth while propping yourself up, that's really good. If you can control some casino spaces to get the skim, that's good. And then that has the dual purpose of you can always kidnap in a casino space as long as you outnumber police, and you get the added bonus of stealing their cash and closing down a casino. So it's doubly good in that respect. And then maybe just like I talked about in the Directorio video, give up on taking control of cities. It's most likely not going to happen. And I didn't really say why in the Directorio video, but you're going to be doing good to get 1 or 2 guerrillas there. And the government can do a train and then just drop 4 cubes down there. I mean, you just can't keep up with that pace. So there's that. Oh, I think to make this game more accurate to the logs, I should be in embargo. Or maybe, I think I was in whatever that is. Reluctant. It doesn't really matter. Sorry for that tangent. If I was good at video editing, I'd cut that out. But so definitely get into positions where you can do kidnapping, because that's one of your most powerful special activities, and you're going to need to use it because a kidnap simultaneously weakens your opponents by making them less able to act or react because they don't have as many resources, and at the same time props you up because you're going to have more resources to act. So I don't know that there's too much else to say on Path to Victory. So spread out, look for your opportunities, get into those ECs so you can have more kidnapping opportunities. Get into the cities if you have to, but when you're in the cities, you're really looking for a quick terror op to get it into opposition or to get a kidnapping going off. You're really not going to be in the city for the long game, just due to the fact that government can train there and get their forces built back up. So if you look for your opportunities and strike when the iron's hot, that's the key to a successful 26th July strategy. All right. Moving on to propaganda round. The way you're going to get resources in the propaganda round is by getting as many of your bases out on the board as possible. This is going to be difficult. I mean, the most resources you're going to get in a propaganda round, if you don't get any skim going, is 4. All right. So most of the other factions are going to out earn you in resources during the prop round, which again is another reason why kidnapping is so powerful and why you need guerrillas in place to take advantage of that. All right, another thing you want to consider in the propaganda round, and I've already touched on this a little bit, is you need to try and take control of 1 or 2 provinces that aren't already in active opposition, okay? Because you're going to get some sort of action economy if you're able to take advantage of agitate during the propaganda round. Because yes, you can basically get the same thing by paying 1 resource for a terror op during a campaign, but I mean, you're exposing a guerrilla, you have to take time to do that. During the propaganda round, you're effectively doing the same thing, but without exposing guerrillas, and you're getting to do it all at once and not having to spread it out over multiple actions. All right. Let's see. Other than that, there's not too much else to worry about during the propaganda round. You're going to reset and get all your guerrillas underground and get rid of terror markers, which is good for you. So let's go ahead and go into faction strengths. I think 26 July might be the strongest faction in the game, at least on paper. That's not to say that the game is unbalanced or anything. I just think that their capabilities are a little bit stronger, and they do have a relatively high mark for victory, because I can't think of too many combos to get there with only a few provinces the way government and Directorio can. But they still have a lot of options. I mean, they have the standard guerrilla operations, so they mirror Directorio and Syndicate in that way. But their special activities are just really powerful, okay? So they have the infiltrate, which can just remove police. And when you're removing police, you're converting them. You're removing police and adding a guerrilla. And remember, once you get more guerrillas than police, you're setting up a situation for kidnapping, which might be one of the strongest special activities in this game. They also have really good events and really good capabilities. But in a sense, that's balanced out, right? Because if you're constantly thinking about, do I want to take a full turn or do I want to take the event? I mean, those are hard decisions, and I think that's where a lot of the balance comes in. You know, if you buy into that whole thing, that the person who gets to take the most full turns typically wins. So what are some weaknesses of 26 July? Well, you're going to draw a lot of table hate. I think that you might spend most of your game being ganged up on because you're so strong. You're not getting as many resources in the propaganda round, so if you can't make those kidnappings work, you're going to really struggle with resources, and you might be hitting up the syndicate for resources. Then you're going to be doing their bidding. You don't have as much of a resource problem as, say, government and Directorio, but I guess out of 4 factions, you're going to be struggling the third worst. So take that for what it is. Um, yeah, I guess there's not too much else to say under faction weaknesses other than table hate and low low resources during the propaganda round. You're going to be heavily dependent on your kidnapping. Okay, let's go to capabilities and momentums. So just like with the government one, they have a lot of them. So I've tried to rank them in the order of what I think is best to worst. I think Gitmo is definitely your best special activity because you get to treat Sierra Maestra, which in this game fell to shit and went into government hands. But most games, 26 July has a firm hold on that. And there's almost never police there because police aren't very mobile. So being able to kidnap there is just fantastic. Okay, so I think that's why that gets the number one spot when it comes to capabilities. Raul being able to re-roll those, I mean, that's still pretty good. Pact of Caracas. I've just never really seen this card used that effectively, and it's so situational. And like I said in the Directorio video, that if you're doing really well, and definitely in a game like this where there's tons of opposition spread out, getting that in effect really makes it difficult for Directorio to just subvert all of your opposition away. And actually, now that I think about it, I think Pact of Caracas was in play for the majority of the game. It came up early in this game, if I remember correctly. The Guerrilla Life, or maybe in Spanish, the Guerrilla Life. I'm not too enthused about that. It basically lets you flip people underground if you don't have a base there, and I don't know, it's could be situationally good. It just doesn't really fit into my play style. And then El Che, I rarely am doing marching with 26 July, so I don't think it's all that great. But overall, I mean that's decent abilities, and maybe I'm not the best at utilizing them, so maybe other 26 July players make better use of those. So take my opinion for what it is. I've always said that my strategy isn't the end all be all, so there you go. Now, maybe taking a look at some critical events. Kind of like Directorio, I've highlighted a lot of these that let you go into places that you normally couldn't go. So, come comrades, 3 guerrillas anywhere you want on the island. You can split them up or put all 3 of them into one place. That's really good. Operation Fisherman, the one that I keep talking about, the one that lets you just drop a dude in a base in Pinar del Rio, which starts the game at active support. So I feel that that's a great boon to have that come up. I talked about Sierra Maestra Manifesto in the last video. Being able to drop 2 bases down for free is really great. I think that's also why I put Vilma Espin down here. Or no, I put her down here because you can set a adjacent space to Sierra Maestra to active opposition. And what's a province next adjacent to Sierra Maestra? Oriente, baby. Get 4 victory points worth. That's pretty great. And then being able to place a base in Guerrillas in Las Villas, which is already a sweet spot with its 2 population. That's why I've highlighted some of these events. Getting free bases, getting guerrillas in places you normally can't go due to support or things like this. So those are the events that I say are extra mindful to keep an eye out for. That's typically what I mean by critical events. So this will conclude my Cuba Libre strategy guide series. I'm going to make another video here where I kind of talk about the future of the channel and talk some more things like that. So stay tuned for that video. You know, if you have any suggestions on what I might do next or things you might like to see, any clarifying questions you might have about Cuba Libre, definitely feel free to send them to theprognard@gmail.com. So with that, I hope you enjoy your games of Cuba Libre. I hope these strategy sessions have been helpful. And definitely feel free to correct anything I've said or offer any of your own strategy tips. So with that, I'm Jacob Williams with the Progno. Have a good one.